So in my last video, I installed coilovers on my 1986 Nissan 300ZX Turbo, and there were a few things left over that I had to get done before I could drive the car again. So that's what we're going to be taking care of today, and that problem is going to be the overheating. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to be replacing the clutch fan on the engine with dual Maxima E fans off of a 2004 Maxima. This 2004 generation has four-conductor fans, and you're able to get 3 different speeds out of them. For this application, we're just going to get 2 speeds out of them that are going to come on shortly after, and the way we're going to do that is by using a Davies Craig DC-0444 fan controller. This is a dual fan controller, but we're going to use it in a capacity that makes it a dual speed, dual fan controller. I'll show you later what I mean by that, but before that, we got to pull out the old clutch fan, we got to pull out the air filter, get off the bumper, and then maybe pull off one of the radiator hoses to where we're actually able to slide the fans in, and then I'm going to make sense of the diagrams that you might find on the internet. So you can see here, these are the fans. These have 4 wires going into the fan as opposed to 2, and you're able to get 3 speeds out of that, and I'm going to show you how that works. This here is a page out of the Nissan factory service manual for whatever vehicle, whatever Maxima it's for. They don't really tell you how these motors work in isolation, but from the relays here, you can see that there's 3 relays. 2 are going to the positive leads, 1 is going to the negative, and when you activate them in sequence, that's how you're able to get your 3 speeds out of the fans. And then this here is the fan controller. It's a DC-0444. Now this is not the official Davies Craig unit, so it's a knockoff. We'll see how this goes. And the other thing to note here with this controller is that on this diagram they have 40 amp fuses going in here. And this controller is only rated on Amazon. It says it's only rated for a maximum of 30 amps per fan. But interestingly, these relays say 12 volt 40 amp. So yeah, we're going to start off by popping the hood and then taking care of the easy stuff. So you can see here, this is the old fan that's on the water pump pulley. This is controlled by a thermostatic clutch in the center there. So it's super rudimentary. That thing is always sucking power, even when it's not fully engaged. And then we're going to have to remove my custom air filter here. This is a K&N universal part that I got off of Amazon. I didn't feel like spending the $200-something odd for the kit for this car, just because it came with a mounting bracket and it was sort of meant for this car. So I found this universal filter, and I made this aluminum bracket out of bar stock from the hardware store. So yeah, let's start by getting this fan clutch out of here and then bolting up the water pump pulley, and then we'll move on to the filter, bumper, and this should be pretty quick. The 4 nuts along the perimeter here are just going to be 10mm. I already removed one earlier as a sample when I went to the hardware store, so I knew what to buy. This one came with its stud, and that's okay. We won't be reusing this, so I'm not going to But while that's still being held on by 2 studs, I'm going to take that opportunity and put on the new hardware. These are M6 by 1.0 thread pitch by 16mm long. These are just flange bolts. They don't have the serrated edge to them, so we'll go ahead and put these on. Once the pulley seats properly around the main shaft of the water pump and it gets aligned, all the bolt holes will be a lot easier to line as well. But you don't want to crank it down completely until you have it fully aligned, otherwise you might bend your water pump pulley. I've decided that before I go and remove the front bumper, instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare the fans for installation. So that means cleaning them up a bit, removing their wires from this harness, and then also while I do that I'm going to show you how they're wired and what the different conductors do whenever you apply power or connect them to ground. can see here I have extracted the fan wires from the harness, which is now sitting on my workbench. The black wire and the blue wire are consistent, as well as the green-yellow wire. We can see we have black, blue, green, yellow. The only difference is on this one, this is the green wire here, and on this one it is solid yellow in that position on the connector. So this here is a computer power supply, and we're going to use the 12-volt lines and the ground lines to try and reverse engineer the pinout for this fan. The reason why I'm using an old computer power supply as opposed to the 12-volt car battery that I have spare is because the computer power supply has a built-in circuit breaker protection. So I'm just going to go ahead and guess and say that black is going to be the constant ground in this scenario. And then if we were to connect this, so we know that's one speed. Let's see, is the blue ground? Probably, let's see. That must mean this is a ground here. So with those two grounds connected, and only using what we've identified now as being the positive lines, there's fan speed 1 and fan speed 2. This diverges from how these fans were intended to be used on the Nissan Maxima, but it'll work for our application with this Davies Craig fan controller. So now that we know what we're working with, I'm going to go ahead and remove the front bumper, and we're going to try and slide these fans in there as is. So, to remove a Z31 front bumper, within the engine bay, when you open the hood, there's bolts here and here, as well as some on the inside side here, and hidden here behind the hose. I've only got the two here and here because you can see that those inside holes have been very conveniently mangled by the previous owner. Something I didn't notice when I went to buy the car. And then on the bumper itself, there's a bracket inside each side here. There's a bolt that goes here, here, and here, rather than studs. And there's nuts on this side, here, and here. Then we'll release the lip. It has two bolts here and here. If your car has it, a lot of the turbo cars have this lower lip. And then underneath where the license plate is, above the radiator opening, there is a row of bolts. Then this will start moving once it's free. Okay, I missed a couple screws down here. Okay. So as you can see here, I was able to get the fan situated in the radiator. It does overshoot the sides of the radiator a little bit, but it does sit nice and flush on the bottom with those mounts. Let me just get this hose back on here, and then we'll continue to do the wiring up, the hard mounting, and then full reassembly and testing. So you can see here I now have the fans properly situated on the radiator, and I have them mounted down using some zip ties on the corners going to these holes in the sides of the radiator tanks. Then I have one in the middle going through the fins, and one on this side as well. At this point we don't need the bumper off any longer because we've done the hard thing. The fans are now fitted, we got them squeezed over the hose and into position. We don't need the bumper off anymore. Let's go ahead and reassemble that to reduce the amount of things that are disassembled and get some of the nuts reattached to where they go. Less extra parts to worry about. And then this temperature probe, I'm going to go ahead and shove in right where the radiator inlet is, because that's where it's going to be most accurate to the actual temperature of the coolant. So that's going to be right around here. I'm just going to shove it in. Alright, and then with that there, I'm going to zip tie this bundle of wire right here, prevent it from moving. Alright, so I finished running power and ground from the attachment point in the back of the engine bay. So all that's left to do is wire up the fan controller, put some coolant back in it, and then test it. Alright, so the way that this is wired is we have the positive and negative wires coming from the battery. They come in over here. The positive wire goes to the wire labeled battery plus VE on the Davies Craig controller. And then out of that, the two fused fan leads, these get split off into the blues and then the green-yellow respectively. And the green and yellow on this one, when you tie those together, that's speed 2. So this is meant to be a dual fan controller. By tying these together and these being the multi-speed Maxima fans, we've made this dual fan controller into a dual speed controller. And then of course the black and yellow and green, and then for this side black, yellow, green, are all tied together, and then those go to the negative wire going back to the battery. This green wire you would wire to the AC compressor clutch wire. That way when you turn on the AC, it's going to give that signal and it's going to override and turn on the fans. I'm just going to let that hang because I do not have AC in this car at this time. And then this yellow wire, I tucked and ran in behind here, and I tapped into the positive wire on the ignition coil, and I just found that out with the multimeter, but it's going to be the green and white wire is the positive wire on the ignition coil. And all that's going to do is, when the car is on, and thus the ignition coil is on, it's going to tell the fan controller that it's okay to run the fans. It's not going to drain the battery of the car. So all that's left to do at this point is I'm going to zip tie everything down, and then get everything back together, get some coolant in the engine, and then we'll fire it up. The battery is pretty dead. I haven't driven the car in a little while, so I'm gonna have to put it on the charger overnight, and we'll just revisit this in the morning. Well, now it's the following morning and the battery's all finished charging, and I buttoned everything up, added some coolant, and we're finally ready to test the car and set the temperature for when the fans come on. So now what we're going to be waiting on is for the car to reach its operating temperature. Once that temperature gauge goes into the middle, where it should be sitting when it's running, we're going to hit that button, and then that'll trigger the fans to stay on at that temperature, thus keeping the car at that target temperature. So I let it sit stationary for quite a while, and after verifying that it wasn't overheating, the car was basically stable. Once it got to operating temperature, it basically stayed there, which is exactly what you want out of your cooling situation when you're sitting in traffic or sitting in a drive-through line, for example. So after finishing installing the coilovers in the last video, basically I had the ride height of the front about 2 inches too high, and then I had the ride height in the rear about 2 inches too low. So it was literally like a squatted Z31. And then also threw on a 25mm hub-centric spacer on the front and rear. It pushes out those stock 1986 turbo rims and really fills out the profile of the car. And I'd say this is probably the perfect ride height for me, where it's low enough to look good, but not so low that it's going to be undrivable on the Colorado roads and the Denver city potholes everywhere. And I just can't get over how good this car looks front to back at this ride height with these spacers on the wheels. And then looking good is one thing, it also drives really good. It is still the semi-trailing rear control arm design, so you're still going to get that snap oversteer and unexpected toe change in corners when the load of the rear suspension changes. But having the car on such firm suspension, 8K front, 6K rear, combined with these new seats, it just feels so firm and dialed and planted, even on these older tires on the stock wheels, which aren't particularly wide or beefy. It just handles at a night and day difference compared to stock suspension. And these stance XR1 coilovers with the 8K front, 6K rear on the Z31, they're right at that limit where it's firm, but still daily drivable and still enjoyable to drive around town. Once I verified it was running correctly with no overheating, I took it to get emissions testing at Air Care, Colorado. Didn't overheat in the line for emissions testing. I probably waited in that line for about 20 minutes before I finally got to get my vehicle tested. Didn't overheat on the dyno, and fortunately it passed emissions. All of the numbers were within their limits for my car. So of course, after getting the Z running and driving again, I had to make my appearances at some car meets. Thanks so much for watching this video until the very end. I've been experimenting with different formats as far as how I want to do car content, if I want to be filming while I'm doing it, like this video, or if I need to do more of, hey, I build it, take pictures, take some videos while I'm doing it, and do more of a debrief, what I learned thing, like super fast Matt. Still experimenting as far as those different styles and how I want to handle things. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comments and leave a like if you like this video. My name is Constantine, I'm a software developer here in Colorado, and on this channel I post a mix of tech and car and motorcycle content, riding, driving, wrenching, and other life stories. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely get subscribed to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Take care.
You're only steps away from enjoying the new Buffalo Wild Wings chicken sticks from Slim Jim. Tender, juicy.